for it. Every
There we go.
if everyone else online could please mute.
All right. So I'm Patrick. I'm in Vancouver, Washington. GEOCHRON Digital is based in around here in the Pacific Northwest, between me and a couple developers. And I'm coming to you from my home office in my home studio, my ham shack. So I'm going to share my screen with you and just show you, now that you know what I look like, I'm here. I'm going to share my screen and let me know if you see a black screen that says GEOCHRON in the middle. You got that?
Yes, we do.
Excellent.
Yeah, we do.
All right. So here's somebody referred to the dentist chair. This is me in the dentist chair right here. Actually, this is the same chair that was not the same chair, but it was one of the chairs used in the Batman films. It's like a Batman chair. So, love it. Had it for 10 years. Terrible on your back. Looks great. So in this picture, you could see the GEOCHRON. But I spent a lot of time in this office, but more importantly, I am often on the road on my motorcycle visiting GEOCHRON owners. And in the last 2 years, I visited 41 states visiting GEOCHRON owners, and I'm trying to wrap it up in the next 6 months. Here I am parked outside of ARRL, and I am and there it looks. So in that particular route, which was blue, I also came through Massachusetts. And so I have a full list of everybody who's ever bought a GEOCHRON, whether it's the mechanical from 1964 or whether it's a new one since 2018. And so the people that I picked to go visit for the mechanical in Massachusetts, where you are, is MIT. So they have both a mechanical and a digital at MIT, and I was really proud of that. So those guys are those guys who run the ITs down. They come upstairs from their IT basement, and they're like, "This is the GEOCHRON digital we installed," and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So that's great. But all over the place. Here's Georgia, and here's that was New Jersey. That was New Jersey, ham radio in New Jersey. This is a commercial installer in that does commercial AV stuff in Pennsylvania. And so they had four 4K screens that were put together in a glittering display. And on this one, you can see that, maybe you can see, but a lot of ham radio DX action was being reflected at the time I plugged that in. I've had so much fun visiting everybody. And then this is Billy. Billy is one of my beta testers, and he's also a big weather nerd. And he's a certified NOAA weather observer, and has been really helpful in the upcoming premium weather layer that we've been putting together. Well, GEOCHRON Digital's kind of started back in 1964. This is an example of the mechanical clock, one of the most beautiful ones we've ever made. This is a limited edition from a couple of years ago. And on the inside, it looks like this. So we have LED lights that are backlit by blue shades. They're called sunshades. They pass through a diffuser, and then they go onto a map showing the sun where it rises and sets in real time. And these clocks, by the grace of God, are still made right now in Colorado Springs. So for many years, I managed a shop that built these clocks and built them myself. But just in the last month, I moved that whole shop, to 2 master clock makers and their employees in Colorado Springs. I'm super proud we got that done. For me personally, it kind of frees me up to work on GEOCHRON Digital a little bit more. But clocks that are this old are the mechanical clocks are a labor of love. And so I gave it all kinds of love for 7 years, and I'm really glad that somebody else is loving it now. I'm very much involved in the process of the mechanical clock still on a daily basis, but I just don't drive to the shop anymore. But I'm sort of the resident institutional memory for the mechanical clock at this point, because everyone else has died or retired. And as if you've ever tried to get a grandfather clock fixed, you'll know it's very difficult. It takes forever. It's because everybody's that age that knows about mechanical clocks is retiring. So this is what we've done. In its time, though, the GEOCHROM mechanical clock was in lots of movies. People knew all about it, movies like Salt and The Hunt for Red October. And I have a couple great promotional photos in my office here. Here's James Earl Jones on the set of The Hunt for Red October, and with a GEOCHRON in the background. So in its day, the GEOCHRON was the only way to display what it looked like for the gray line. And so that's why ham radio guys and girls know about it all over the place. It was regarded as the king of the shack. So here's the original inventor, James Kilberg, with his 2 sons. with Ronald Reagan, and a geochron that Ronald Reagan owned, and I think it's down in California now. And anyway, so James Kilberg died a long time ago, but his youngest son took over the practice, the short one there, and he emails me and calls me from time to time from his house in Lake Tahoe just to make sure that the mechanical clock is still running. The family stays in touch with me. They're very proud that it's still around. Unlike many things that were beautiful and mechanical that have been built mid-century, the GEOCHROM mechanical remains. So I got lots of president pictures too. There's Gerald Ford. There's President Obama with a GEOCHRON in the background. And then there's Biden with GEOCHRON in the background right there. So that red clock that you see there above it is from BRG Products, another dealer of ours. They combine the digital GEOCHRON together with their red large display red clocks, and I'm going to be visiting him down deep in Kansas in 2 weeks. I just made those plans, so that's really cool. Really like visiting people. Put together the mechanical clock is a beautiful display of the world in real time. And in this one, you can see that the sun is rising in Turkey. The sun is setting in Denver. And this is a lawyer's, he's a patent lawyer in Dallas that restores old, I think it's called Celestar handheld telescopes. Anyways, big GEOCHRON fan. Beautiful office built around his GEOCHRON. And on the other side of his office is the digital, which I'm going to start talking about here right now. Just a moment. So before I get started, I'm going to switch out. I'm going to stop sharing, and we're going to come back to you with my face. So is everybody familiar with the GEOCHRON from 1964 and was familiar with it as a mechanical clock? Probably. Yeah, a lot of guys were. And so I was too. I walked into a store. Well, I walked into a conference room here in Portland, Oregon, about 20 years ago, a little more than that. And I saw a mechanical GEOCHRON for the first time. I'm like, what is that? And if you're the right kind of person, you're like, you won't forget it because I don't know, I love maps. I love where the gray line's at. I've traveled a little bit around the world. I can feel what's going on. So I jumped in, and 10 years later, I bought the company. So moving on, I'm going to share my screen again. Just a moment. Back to the patent office. The patent dude. All right. Can you see the office in front of you now? Just give me a nod, yes or up and down if you can. Great. So there is a digital on the wall in front of you. And this is the thing that I brought to the company when I bought it. It's the GEOCHRON Digital 4K. So it's put together like this. It's a small little remote computer that is this fast and as powerful as a regular laptop, like a PC, except that it has no fan and it sits inside your hand. And then that HDMI port, which is at the top of the screen you see there, then it plugs into your 4K TV. So for the longest time, I'm like, we got these beautiful maps. How can we get this onto a screen? And finally, somebody said digital display computer, like the kinds that you see at McDonald's where you take your order. Those same computers are running a similar type of hardware. So we got one of those computers and we got it souped up and fast enough. It's a 2.4 gigahertz processor. And we turned it into something that looks like a mechanical GEOCHRON, but then we started adding to it. And in this picture, which is from Croatia, I love that post-Soviet architecture. So yeah, we took the GEOCHRON mechanical and made it digital. So here's an example from Florida of what that looks like. Strong on the screen, as you can see, a yellow line that's streaking past. That is the position of the International Space Station. The Hubble Space Telescope is in there. And then it's been picked up by lots of different schools. This is Vanderbilt University on a exceptionally large display of, I think it's a projector actually, of a GEOCHRON digital that they're using to teach kids, which is awesome. I think my favorite installation, and maybe one of these days I'll get to visit him, is astronaut Scott Kelly here shown on TV with obviously my GEOCHRON in the background. So he and I have shared a few emails. Maybe one of these days I'll knock on his door. He lives in Colorado and say, hey, can I get a picture of you in your office next to the GEOCHRON? And I'm going to frame that in my house because that's the coolest thing ever. So what's on the GEOCHRON digital? And I'll get to the ham radio bundle in just a second. Here in this, I see a lot of amateur satellites that are floating around, all real-time satellites in their live location. The blue that you see is where it's raining on Earth, and that's above a geopolitical map. I'm tracking all aviation flights by category of continent or by the category of where they're of like all the Frontier flights, all the Delta flights, all the United flights, all in the world in real time, wherever they are, they show up on a GEOCHRON. And what we're doing is we're sending live information, like these earthquakes that you see here, from our servers by Wi-Fi or by the internet to the GEOCHRON as it's plugged into your TV. So the GEOCHRON computer is doing the it's called the Atlas, is doing the assembling of the picture in 4K, and it's also receiving live info that it's patching together for a display that you can see for the Earth in real time. For example, here's what it looks like on the pollution layer. You can see that Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan is got really bad air quality, and those little green dots are the live conditions of air quality and carbon monoxide, prime particulates around the world. It's just lots of little things that we'll show on the GEOCHRON so that you can see the whole thing in real time. Put it all together and you see something like this. This is a little bit jittery as you see it, but of course it's smoothly running on your GEOCHRON. I see DX lines that are going on and live conversations. I see solar weather. I see the satellite footprints of amateur radio satellites. And then so this is an example of what that looks like. I'll get into all these things in a little bit more detail here. All right. One of the things we added just recently was we had the International Space Station in its live location, but people wanted to actually see what the live Earth view was from the ISS. And in daylight, you can. So I think I can. Well, I messed that up. Well, here's an example of what that looks like. So here you can see the ISS is floating over Texas, and that's what it looks like in Texas. But it is magical to see the live Earth view and the icon positioning on the map at the same time, and then watch the picture delayed about 30 seconds rolling past your screen. It's kind of cool. Like if I was on the ISS, that's what it would look like. All right. And then just recently, we started up in zooming. So that was the big picture, the big question that everybody asked. And so here's a little promotional video that's just 45 seconds long that I did about zooming. We've always received suggestions about what people want to see on the GEOCHRON. In the beginning, it was like, I want to see weather. Check. I want to see earthquakes. Check. I want to see pollution. Check. I want to see the ISS. Check and check. But there was one thing that dominated them all. It was, how come I can't zoom with this? Check.
So Patrick, just so you're aware, we could hear that. It was copyable, but low on volume.
Oh, sorry about that. Well, that was about the end of it. So sorry. I will, I guess it's not sharing my audio feed off the computer. Okay, well, anyway, it looks like this. So people are used to pinching their phones and zooming in things. It's a little bit more complicated on your 4K TV, but we are zooming into regions now like Europe and North America. And this particular one, you can see live dxing lines that are occurring all over the place, which brings me to the ham radio premium layers. Any questions so far from anybody? I know I've got about 6 minutes left, so I'm just running through this. So what ham radio guys are doing is they are putting us into their shack so they can see the world in real time. And when people walk into your shack, they're just like, oh yeah, they see all that equipment and they don't know what it does. But when they see the map, they're like, I get that. And then they're using this to not just find out what's going on in the community of ham radio around the world, but to explain the thing of what they're doing, explain the whole thing to other people using a map that they recognize. So here's an example. These are just people that have sent me pictures or that I have taken pictures of their beautiful ham radio shack setups. Love it. So we've started with a base map of the just a ham map that you should recognize. And from that, we added a bunch of stuff. Here in this, you can see maximum usable frequency. That's what those green dots are, of the maximum usable frequency over a 1,000 kilometer throw. And then we also have some live dxing. You can see a lot of it happening between the North America and Europe. And down at the bottom, the very bottom, you see sort of a color palette of what things look like. I'm going to get to that in just a second so that you know what what frequencies are open in real time. So this is the DX propagation. We could see a subset, like maybe about 10%, I think, of all the data that we have. We're throwing this up on the screen. You could see different call signs that are active at that time as a visual representation of the world of ham radio that's going on as you sit there working the bands in FT8, Whisper, and in DX. And down at the bottom, those color codes of the Great Circle routes that are connecting different ham operators, you can read which ones are open by the colors. Like 10 meters would be pink, 17 meters is yellow, and a real popular one, anyway, so 20 meters would be beige, and so on. So it gives you kind of like a telephone directory, but it's real. It's actually in real time. As an example of what that DX propagation looks like in the menu, these are some of the options that you have to check it out, including the not just the DX cluster, but also the reverse beacon network. A question I often get about where do we get our data? And the answer is HamQTH is where that comes from. And we can't use all the data because it would obliterate the screen, but we just take a subset of that data, like maybe 5 to 10%, and put it on the GEOCHRON for everybody. Here's an example of what that looks like, along with earthquake. So as you see, when I did this picture, you can see that there's a cluster of ham radio satellites that are coming up from Peru. That's the pink. And then over the orange on the right-hand side over Indonesia, there's a 6.9 degree earthquake that's also occurring. We have more than just ham radio people. We have aviators and geologists and stuff that also enjoy these layers. Here's a larger example of what that looks like. The large pink circle that you see is the footprint of CA. I think I can barely, I can hardly read it, but I think it's WA20. All right. So also, if you are a subscriber to QRZ, you can automatically put in your logbook. A lot of ham guys asked for center projection, which wasn't a part of the original mechanical clock, but is super useful. We also have added FT8 spots and AMSAT satellites. Here you see as an example of the big footprint. And you can put in your call sign as big as you like it, whatever color you like, because every ham shack I've ever seen has got somebody's call sign somewhere. And so we made it the size of, almost the size of Argentina. Or you can have it small if you want to. Solar conditions on the left-hand side. This should look familiar. And also planetary positioning, if you're into that. These are just widgets that are on there. And the Aurora, which has been extremely active over the last week. The MUF layer is something that you use if you're a more advanced ham radio operator. This is a heat map that you're seeing here. So it has a tendency to kind of obliterate the screen when you put it up. But if you're trying to get, like, if you're coming from the United States and over to Japan, you'll see that the maximum usable frequency is 14 megahertz to 18 megahertz. This is useful if you're trying to when you're trying to traverse and bounce signals off the ionosphere. This will tell you the maximum frequency that the ionosphere will handle before your signal is lost. And of course, we added all the grids, the Maidenhead grids, so that when you're contesting, whether it's in zoom mode, which is much more detailed, or you're in global mode, you can help keep track of where you are. At the same time that I see DXing on that screen, I see maximum usable frequency on that screen. I also see at the same time those satellites, those are AMSAT linear satellites. It gets really, really busy, which is why you can turn them on and off, depending on what you're trying to do. Here's an example of what that looks like as we're moving around in real time. It's the satellites that move the fastest, so that's what you see. But you can also see different connections that are being made between ham radio operators as new Great Circle routes are established. And so people are, like I said, using this to it's really a useful piece of equipment, but also looks pretty great in any ham shack. So, and I have 15 seconds left. Wow. So here's some examples of people all over the world. This is Belgium. That he's using it in his ham shack. And this is not too far from here. This guy is a pilot, lives down in Eugene, Oregon, about an hour from me. Really like that one. That looks good. The speakers. I'm a sucker for backlighting. I like that too. So if you go to our website and you're like, I want to check this out, right? If you subscribe to our newsletter, we're going to send you a coupon for 10% off the GEOCHRON Atlas, and you get one of those free premium layers for a whole year. Try it out and see if you like it. But all the layers that I showed you, many of them are available just for free for as long as you own the unit. But the ones that are ham radio specific, those are, I've called a premium layer, that help us defray the cost of delivering all that data to you, because I've got developers that work for me full time, constantly fixing things and all that stuff. So that would be at geochron.com. And that is everything I had to say. I am open for questions. Please ask me questions. I am the guy that knows the most about GEOCHRON anywhere. This is my bread and butter. Yeah, go ahead, Adrian.
Can you hear me?
I got you.
Good. How is all that data different types
Yeah.
of data? Some sources are obvious, but what are the major sources for all that digital data?
The two biggest sources, the dxing comes from HamQTH, and then everything else comes mostly from either cartographers, like for fixed maps that we have. The maps that you see behind us are the same ones that we are using on the mechanical map. And so I have cartographers that come in and update everything every once in a while. So that's where the maps are coming from. They kind of like was GEOCHRON's property to begin with the mechanical. But when it comes to the weather data, we're using two different sources. One, we pay for it. It's called AERIS, AERIS, and the other one comes from the U.S. government. The U.S. government also provides the earthquake data for us, and the ISS LEV, since that's NASA and a public feed, which we then bring into our servers and then disseminate to all the GEOCHRONs that are out there.
Oh, so you actually collect data and transmit it from GEOCHRON to the customer?
Yep, we're aggregators. So all that data is available. Sometimes we pay for it, sometimes we don't, but all of it gets brought into our server, and then the server sends it out to all the GEOCHRON, all the GEOCHRONs that have that layer open.
That is massive. It's phenomenal.
It's a lot. Yeah. There's somewhere, I think in Texas, called Linodes, there is a rack of servers that is constantly thinking about GEOCHRON, receiving information and sending it out. And then I have full-time developers that just sit there and maintain that system. And occasionally, a couple times a year, we'll add new stuff that people have been asking for.
Hey, Patrick, you showed the ISS live stream. Do you have any other live stream sources currently or in future plans to pull live stream from other places, video?
Yeah, we have various animations that are being used, like for earthquake. It's just kind of the same principle for us. And we have a weather layer that's an advanced radar weather layer that's coming out shortly, that in tangent with all the zooming that we've been doing. But I don't think I have any other live video feeds at the time. But man, I am open for suggestions because we already wrote that program. If you've got a good idea, I'd love to hear it.
Okay, one other question, Pat. How much is it to receive or rent all that data? If one has bought a GEOCHRON and got the basic map information,
yeah,
from there on, what is the kind of a cost are we talking about?
So the ham radio bundle is the most complicated one that we have. It's the most expensive one, and it is $5.75 a month.
Okay.
So, yeah.
How much is actually?
Yeah.
How much is actually a GEOCHRON?
Yeah. So like I'm holding one right here. This is like a unit. It says beta because I test them here. But so this one is going to be there. It depends on who you go to, but they're going to be between $449 to $499. And if you go to a ham show, like a major ham show that has one of the dealers or has me and I'm there, then sometimes you can get a show price. The one that's from our website, if you buy it from our website, geochron.com, it'll come with a free premium layer, but all the premium layers come with a trial period of a week or so you can get to feel it. And if you like it, you can purchase it. But anything from our website has a premium layer for a year. That doesn't cost anything. We just want you to like it.
I like
Any
it. I
questions?
like it, but can I afford it?
Any questions in the room? I know Patrick can't quite easily see us.
I can
We
hear
have
you
what?
great. If you get a microphone to him, I can answer anything.
One question over here.
Okay.
It's on.
Okay. Patrick, what kind of bandwidth do you need on your internet connection to stream all this data down to your unit?
Sure. If you're bringing everything in, it's about 30 or 40 megabytes per day. So it's just receiving vector coordinates, and then it's patching those together to put it on a display on the screen. There's one exception to that, and that is the live feed of the ISS. So that is like streaming on Netflix. Because it's coming in at a 1080, so it's coming in at hundreds of megabytes per hour. If you have the ISS live Earth view feed on all the time. Last year we had 2 exchange students that lived with us, international exchange students, and they were teenagers. And I'm like, hey guys, I'm getting a notice from Comcast that you're taking up all the bandwidth. They're like, no, we're not. No, we're not. And then I looked at my server, at my Wi-Fi logs to find out that, oh, I was running the ISS the whole time, and that was what was consuming my quota of bandwidth. It was me the whole time. I just didn't know. But otherwise, it's just 20 or 30 megabytes a day.
Patrick, this is Dick, W1REJ. I'm working with you on your beta testing of the weather.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, how close are you to putting that on the air?
Oh, man. Okay. So I think that our beta testers will be seeing that within 2 weeks.
Okay.
I've got it running on mine, but we're still working out some of the kinks. And by the time you get it, we like to think it's 100%, but our beta testers let us know what's going wrong, what goes right with it. But it is stellar. It's as big a leap forward for us as the ham radio bundle was, especially in the audience that we can appeal to, like aviators and weather people, which are also adjacent audiences that we would like to get the GEOCHRON to, because nobody else is doing this in 4K.
Related questions. On your weather layer, are you going to have live lightning?
Okay, so that's a complicated. So I will. 4 years ago, when we first started getting live layers going on in the GEOCHRON, like, because I go to the websites, so I'm like, somebody get me lightning. Can anybody get me lightning? And then they're like, oh yeah, no. Then we looked into it, and actual lightning strikes, to get that API, which is the database, there's like one API in the whole world. It is expensive, like $4,000 a month to get live real lightning, even if it is real. I don't even know how they come up with it. So what we did was we have subscribed to Eris, and then we have, how you'll see like dense lightning storms. There's radar showing, and you can also have dense lightning storms. And so what we did was we took those dense lightning storms and then wrote an algorithm that simulated the amount of lightning that was occurring with in those little storm cells, so that when you look at the GEOCHRON in the upcoming weather package, you'll see it go blip, 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 blip. It looks so cool. So there's the answer. There's the answer. That's like the holy grail. I want lightning on my GEOCHRON, and so we've done it in a simulated fashion that's close.
So what triggers the...
Okay, so we know that lightning is occurring in a particular area, and to what degree. Like if you were to look at a heat map, right, of where it's raining, it'd be red and green and white, where it's just like biblical rain. So the weather services that we are subscribing to will tell us where the lightning is occurring within several miles, whether it's a scale of on a 1 to 10, like this is a 9, move 10 miles that way, it's a 6. And so we are simulating lightning by doing little GIFs going beep, 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 beep in those areas that are super hot and that are not hot. And what I just said took like 3 weeks to figure out and how to get that on a geochron.
So WSI and Barron's and all those other commercial weather companies pay the big bucks to get the map, the data coming from all those listing sites.
So it's really expensive to get, it's Blitzstring. And so Blitzstring says that they have live lightning. And so like windy.com had live lightning for a while. And this is where I first saw it. I'm like, live lightning, I got to have that on the geochron. And so it was like crowdsourced. And so if you put up an antenna on your roof, then they would give you a subscription to everything they were picking up, like ADSB would work for aviators. But then they figured out that windy.com was not a private entity, but a commercial entity, and they cut them off. And so now windy.com is using simulated lightning. And because it's just insanely expensive to get the real lightning. Yeah. So anyway, for our purposes, simulate is going to look great. Because that's probably more than you want to know about lightning.
This is Joe in 1JIW.
Hey, hi, Joe.
Hi. What is the dimensions on the Earth of a pixel on the screen?
Whoa. All right. Well, I've got a calculator in front of me. I can do that real quick. 26,000. I've just really off the top of my head, at the equator, it would be the equivalent of 7 miles.
Okay.
I think. But no one's asked me that question. So
that lightning could occur with any place within 7 miles then.
Yeah. One of the things I want to do for the ham radio bundle, we do get a lot of requests saying, can you put an alert on my geochron when lightning is nearby? If I have the ham radio bundle, and then it'll appear like as a notification on the geochron so that you don't fry your equipment. And we do have people that will send in their atlases, they'll bring them back and they are fried, and they'll say, it was lightning, blew it out. And so that's something that I hope to add in a couple of months to the ham radio bundle. Just a lightning notification on screen, which would look cool. I'd maybe come up with like a little like a beep 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 like a noise or something. That would be cool too. Other questions? All right, good. So
hold on, we got one more.
All right, I'm ready.
I'm back for another question. With all this data flowing into these units, when somebody selects like the different layers, do you filter that at your end so that you can minimize the amount of data you need to send? Or do you just send everything and it's filtered locally at your geochron?
That's a great question. So we had some users that were on the Starlink network, and they're just like really concerned about bandwidth, whether I can get it. And so they didn't want an unmetered connection to our server. So a geochron will come with, it will draw about 40% of all the possible data, and that's how it operates out of the box. And then if you open up a layer and it doesn't have that data, then it's going to take just an extra 5 seconds or 10 seconds to get it all downloaded so it can assemble it on the screen. However, in the system panel, there is an option for unlimited downloads. And that means that every download, every piece of data that is available to your geochron is getting downloaded, whether you're looking at it or not. So most people who are on a home-based Wi-Fi network will open up the unlimited downloads so that they don't have to wait when they open up a layer for it to download from the server. Yeah. So if you're interested, you can always find me at patrick@geochron.com. We're a small company. There's just 3.5 of us that run the whole thing on the digital side. And so if you send an email to patrick@geochron.com, it's not my assistant that gets it. It's my email client and I'm looking at it at 7:30 every morning. Please ask me questions. And everybody who just subscribes to newsletter, and my newsletters are real good. I do all the writing. I tell the stories about visiting ham people out there, and I take the mileage right off from my motorcycle, so I don't have to pay taxes. That's awesome. And and you'll get 10% off with a coupon just for subscribing to the newsletter, and then hopefully you read them because I work on them.
Just want to make one comment. Thank you, Patrick, so much. Again, this is George, KAE3RLC. I don't know if you can see me or not, but I personally am blessed to have one of these GEOCHRONs. It's wicked cool, 43-inch 4K television in the Radio Shack. Get for a few $100. It's really neat. I haven't subscribed yet to the ham radio bundle, actually, but I will be shortly. So, but no, I've been playing with that for a while, and the other free layers are just phenomenal.
Thank you. Thank you. I hear from people all the time. I really love doing this work. It's super fun.
Yeah. So again, thank you so much for joining our club. Any last questions before we let them go?
All right. I know you have other business, but I'm just going to sit here and do a little bit of work. If somebody wants to ping me on Zoom or ask me a question after the meeting's over the video, I'll be around. Okay.
Thank you very much, Patrick.
All right.